Welcome to the Contractors Revenue Disruptor Podcast, where we teach you to win $1 million contracts. I'm Michael D. Young. What's up, family? This is Michael D. Young, and I'm your host for another episode of the Revenue Disruptor Podcast. I'm so excited to have here today a very, very special guest. I say he is the GOAT when it comes to construction and construction management, specifically in our Black and Brown communities. So thank you, Frank. Frank Kendrick with NuJak. Been around forever, since 1992.
That's right.
And it's a great honor to have you on the podcast today, like for real. I probably never shared this with you, but I've looked up to you over the years. Of course, you're a big brother, not only in the construction industry, but also spiritually,
yes,
in the faith. And I'm so glad to be able to interview you, talk to you more about your success, your journey, and everything that I believe God has allowed you to go through throughout this process. So welcome, man.
Thank you. It is definitely my honor to be here today. And I want to tell you that I'm equally just honored to be here as well, because I've also watched you, and I've watched you really take the Orlando area by storm. I used to hear a lot of things about ACY, and I was like, who is ACY, right?
Yeah.
And after I started looking, I would say, wow, this brother's got it going on. And then, of course, we had our moment.
Right. We had our moment. Yes. We're going to talk about that moment later in the episode, because truly it was a great moment, and we made history. So we're going to talk about how we made history and will forever be in the history books.
Yes.
I do want to talk about your journey, as I know you've been around, started the company in 1992, and you've had this long journey in construction and so many accomplishments that you've had. But can you talk to us maybe where your journey started? Because like yourself, there are other people out there that's looking to get into the construction business, and they may enter at different points, whether it's in the field or as an apprentice, or they go to school for it. Can you talk to us about maybe how your journey started?
Yeah. So actually, my journey began. My dad was a contractor. He was not a licensed contractor.
Okay.
He was kind of a bootleg contractor, not a jackleg contractor.
Because there is a difference between a bootleg and a jackleg.
That's right.
That's a good one.
So I was raised cleaning up construction sites, and just he eventually became a developer, and I was able to observe a lot of the investors that would invest with him, and watched a lot of the projects that they did. And I was always inquisitive. I would ask questions about it. And so we had this game plan that I was going to go off to school and kind of legitimize construction, and then come back, and we were going to start a business again. In fact, we already had a name. It was going to be called Kentom Construction. Kendrick is my last name. Tumberland was his last name. My father was not in the house with us. I was raised in a single parent household. But you know, my dad was certainly didn't leave me, didn't neglect me. He spent enough time with me and taught me the value of work. And so I went to University of Florida.
Gators.
Yes. I almost did the chop. I'm gonna do the chop, right? All right. But and majored in building construction, and got out and took a job. I got married after I graduated, and took a job working for Kimmons Construction Company, and they had just started their construction department field. They do a lot of site work,
Okay.
site work development. And so anyway, first project was a 250 unit apartment complex in
Wow.
West Palm Beach.
That's a big project to start off on.
And I was second in charge, I was assistant superintendent. And so that was pretty cool coming right out of school, being assistant superintendent. But I thought I knew a little bit, but I was the Green Hornet.
Right.
And, worked there for a few years, building apartment complexes. And my wife is from Lakeland, and her mom just makes the best Sunday dinners.
Okay.
And she was making one of her infamous Sunday dinners and needed some ingredients, and had to run to Publix real quick. Turned the stove off, jumped in the car, ran to Publix, came back. Their house was
oh no,
totally gone. It caught fire. She thought she turned it off. Wow. She turned it on high, and the pot caught fire. And it just, so anyway, I had just passed my general contractor's exam.
Okay.
And so I moved to Lakeland temporarily, and that was 32 years ago.
Wow. And then you stayed.
And of course, my dad and I were never able to get a construction company together, but we did relatively well.
Yeah. So it definitely had an impact on your life, because not many people, when they go through high school, hear about a career in construction.
Yeah.
Most of us hear that, we think lay bricks. That's what the common perception is.
Bricks,
We're going to go lay bricks or lay, pour concrete.
Pour concrete. Yeah, that's right. That's
and I try to educate our audience that there are many ways to enter into construction. There's different components of construction. So like yourself, I did go to the University of Florida, and when I graduated, I actually began my career in estimating.
Okay.
So I wasn't on the management side like you're on in the field or field management. I was in the office doing estimating. So most of my career, that's why I'm an excellent estimator. Like,
I was going to say, that's actually a good place to start.
It's an excellent place to start if you're going, especially if you're going to own your own business.
That's right.
And I found most of my clients struggle in that area.
Yeah.
And they're relying on these other vendors, other organizations, companies to provide estimates for them, and they don't really understand the whole process. So awesome. So as you continue to remain in Lakeland, how did you end up starting NuJak?
Yeah. So my dad used to tell me that only a fool has to learn everything on his own and won't take somebody's word for it.
Okay. Now, hold up. You got to say that. Because you slid right past that. Your dad told you what? Say that again.
He said, only a fool has to learn everything on his own and won't take somebody's word for it.
Woo.
And he told me that people tend to look for people who are very successful. Mm-hmm. He said, but when you go, he said, find somebody who was not successful and ask them why and what happened. Wow. And he said, you often can learn more about success from a person who didn't make it than someone who did. We had a contractor who, and I'll say he had a mixed career. He had a lot of successes, but he had a lot of major failures. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a list of all the people that I wanted to talk to when I was thinking about starting the business, just either paying attention to word of mouth, who was doing what. And he was one of them. He was the OG in
now
construction.
You the OG.
Yeah, how about that? So I went to him and, sat down, took him to lunch. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, talked about his successes and, asked him what was his biggest failures, and he shared it with me. And we had just a good relationship. And literally every day I would just go and just want to hang out with him and just to try and learn what the community and learn the people who I needed to know. He told me who all I needed to meet. And he was just very influential and just really helped me out with getting introductions to people. So one day, he said, you're doing a lot of talking. He said, but when you going to start your business?
Right. That part.
And I was like, but I was afraid. And I was like, I don't know. I said, I don't know. And he said, why don't you start the day?
Wow.
I said, I don't even know what to do. And he said, let's go to your house. And I said, okay. And we went to my house. He called one of his friends. He was another OG political guy, just big time. Mm-hmm. And the two of them came in there, and he had draft articles of incorporation.
So he just helped you get started. He helped
me. It was a typewriter, dude. We typed out articles of incorporation, and his friend said, if you pay me $100, I'll run it up to Tallahassee.
Wow.
And you'll be incorporated tomorrow.
Wow.
Paid him $100. He drove to Tallahassee.
Wow.
And hand delivered.
That's how they used to do it.
That's how they used to do it. I know. I'm big time dating myself, man. But yeah. Man. But he drove up the next day. We were in business. So yeah.
Wow. Talk about having a mentor that was there when you didn't know what to do. Somebody was there to help you along the way. I think that's so instrumental in where we are today. That's the whole premise of this podcast. The whole premise of my mentorship program is that I recognize that I could have gone so much further with the right mentors. And I actually did benefit from many mentors. Okay. Whether it was the mentor protege at the University of Florida, or whether it was Orange County Public Schools that was pushing for the primes to have diversity partners. And through my partner Williams' company, we were able to learn how to figure out how to get our accounting in place.
Yes.
How to go about getting bonding.
Yes.
And they were very instrumental in helping us continue to build the company up. And I think so many people are out there just guessing what to do. And just to speak to that point, as far as not knowing where to start, I remember being there because my former business partners and we literally met for over 2 years just talking about what we were going to do and how we were going to start. And I find it so ironic how you said your mentor was like, when you going to start?
Yeah, right.
You got to start. You just doing all this talking.
That's right.
And we were doing the same thing. We'll eat.
That's funny.
Going to lunch, having breakfast, doing all this talking, but you never start until you start.
Yeah. It's a lot of people that are out there doing that. And I think part of our responsibility, you and I, is to kind of pay it forward. Mm-hmm. So, we had great mentors, people that mentored us, but, I think our responsibility is to pay it forward and I think I applaud you for what you're doing and how you're mentoring. We've had 13 construction companies come out of our office.
Nice.
And I continue to mentor these companies today. And I started a business network at our church. And we've got about 35 different businesses that, just teaching them. But you'd be amazed. You're not amazed, but at how many people just kind of get stuck. Right. And they're afraid to make that step. Even like a lot of people are working on their job.
Right.
And they feel this calling like to start their own business and jump out there, but it's crazy. It looks crazy out there, and they're afraid to step out there. And sometimes you just need somebody to just push you out.
Right.
That's actually how I learned how to swim.
Somebody just
pushed me in the water, and it was like sink or swim, And sometimes we need somebody to just push us out there and say, "Hey, dude, you got to go." But it's great to have a mentor there with you to if you fall, they're there to help you.
That's the key point. Like, even somebody pushes you out there, at least they have a lifesaver there.
They're right there watching you. Now they push you and they walk away, dude. They ain't for you. I'm just telling you, that's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So started in 1992. I mean, 32 years. In business. What do you credit your sustainability? Because most companies don't make it past 5. 32 years in the game, in construction, like literally 3 years out of college.
That's right. That's exactly right.
3 years out of college, and 32 years later, here you are having completed one of the so many major large projects here.
Sure.
I know you have a few of those now under your belt. Won't you talk about some of the major projects you've worked on and maybe how you were able to procure those projects?
Sure. I think the probably the largest, most significant project that we participated on is the Florida Polytechnic.
Yeah.
And that project, and again, I could go on with the number. I'm kind of trying to figure out where to land. Was your question which projects, or how did we get to those?
Well, I know you have a few, or more than a few.
Yeah.
But the top ones, you mentioned Florida Polytech, and I know Southeastern,
yeah.
University, some of your major projects. Talk about the size of those projects and how you were able to procure them.
Gotcha. So I'll start with the Florida Poly project. On average, and you can attest to this, I'm sure, it takes about 3 years to develop a client relationship. And we've one thing that we've done well is we're very strategic in our approaches. So we're planning now relationships that we already know this is the seeding.
It's really good.
And we know that we're not gonna see any real benefit for this for at least another 3 years. And so we're just mentoring the relationship, just cultivating the relationship. And the Florida Poly was one of those relationships that it took about 3 years to cultivate. Again, it's I mentioned earlier, kind of writing the list. I still write lists today of who I need to,
do I need
to see, who do I need to, they need to know me, I need to know them. And so Marshall Goodman was one of those people who was the kind of the founder of the Florida Poly, and ended up getting into a business group of CEOs with him, and spent a lot of time. And so the Florida Poly was birthed out of that group of men, and did a lot of talking about, who the architect is going to be, how the funding, all of those things. And so I was actively involved in those conversations. And so he had an opportunity to know who I was, and I him. But the key was to be able to understand the program and the nature of what the project was going to be. At that point, once the RFP hit the street,
you already hit
I
it.
already knew everything about this project.
Yeah.
I knew and so at that point we needed to find a partner.
Yeah.
Because it was $110 million project, and we didn't have the bonding nor the capability, the experience to be able to do that.
But you had the relationship.
But we had the relationship, and we had the intel. We had that, and so we sent out our own RFP to about 5 different large CMs. Only 3 came to our office. We basically just said, we want to pursue this project and we are looking for a partner, and wanted to know if you'd be interested in coming to our office and just having a conversation.
Okay.
Skanska was one of those companies that came, and we met with Skanska. We met with 2 other firms. The other 2 was like, who are you?
Right.
But the other 3 said, wait a minute, this guy,
he has something.
He got something. Yeah.
Exactly.
For him to invite us to come and talk about a pursuit, he knows something. He understands something. And so we sat and we talked with the different companies, and we decided that Skanska was by far, they were the best company to partner with. And so then we reached back out to them, and we kind of put our deal together with them.
Did you do a true joint venture, or was it just a regular association?
It was an association, but at the time that was way early in associations. Associations have evolved quite differently nowadays, but this was back when people didn't know what they know now about associations, and so we were able to really get a great relationship, a document together that was really wonderful. And so we had our attorneys do it and draft it up, and then from there it was a matter of the pursuit, and we pursued it.
That's a great segue to talk about how, even if you do not have the capacity having the relationship sometimes is just as valuable, if not more valuable. The other point to your story is you were able to get ahead of the RFP.
Yes.
Which most people don't understand, especially in any type of governmental or public sector work that's funded by local, state, or federal government. If you're able to have and develop those relationships with those clients prior to the RFP being released, you stand a greater chance of being successful in that pursuit. And I think for many of us in our Black and brown communities, we were so oblivious to that, right?
Yeah.
Until we became more exposed to it because our white counterparts do it all the time.
All the time. Yeah. It's getting there early. And actually, I learned that. Now, there's a true OG here, Ann McNeil.
Okay.
I won't tell the story. She hates when I tell the story about how I knew about her. But anyway, but she has mastered that. She spends the majority of her time developing relationships,
right?
Getting ahead of RFPs, getting ahead of RFQs and things like that, so that by the time it hits the street, she already knows. She already knows about it. She's already gotten her partners together, and she's done a great job at that. And so I actually learned that from her.
Okay, we'll give you credit, Ann McNeil. All right.
Yeah. Learned that from her.
Yes. What's up, everybody? If you are a construction contractor and you're looking to win $1 million contracts, grow and scale your business, I help contractors win $1 million contracts so they can make more money working fewer projects with less employees. And we do this through my mentorship program. In my mentorship program, we have bi-monthly group coaching, we have CEO groups, we provide you an online course, and we teach you the strategies you need in order to scale your business, and we help implement the systems you need on the back end to support your growth. Because number one, you definitely need the resume, the resources, and the relationships to scale your business. Then we've recently added a mentor protege program with major corporations. This is huge because number one, it allows you to learn how other major corporations desire their projects to be run, so you understand their expectations. You're learning, growing, and developing relationships with major corporations, which always leads to more business opportunities. I want to tell you, no one else is doing this in the industry, and you've come to the right place. If you are looking to truly grow and scale your business, I've done it over and over again. I've won multiple awards for scaling a construction company, and I want to show you everything that I did to do it. So if you're looking to scale, grow your business, win $1 million contracts, sign up right now for my free training. It's very simple. It'll be on the screen, and we'll see you soon. God bless.
Yeah, and then the same thing with Southeastern. That took 3 years.
Okay. Did you already have a relationship with those that are at that university, or how did that come about?
Well, again, it was the list.
So you already was aware that they were working on something? Or
we had heard that they were one of the fastest growing private universities in the country.
Okay.
And even now today, that's one of the things that we do. Every year we strategize to say who's got the money and who's gonna have the money.
Babe, didn't I just talk about this in our group coaching? Like, this is good.
Who's got the money? Because the worst thing you do is tilt your ladder up against a building, and you get to the top and realize that you're on the wrong building.
Right.
Like you just did all that work and you and it's like, and we've done that before. You go in and you're meeting people and you're talking to them, and you put a lot of sweat equity into relationships, developing relationships, only to find out that they ain't got no money. They ain't got no money, and they don't know when they're gonna have no money. You're just like, are you kidding me? You know.
Right.
So one of the things we do is we say, who's gonna have the money, and we forecast that, and so we knew that they were one of the fastest growing private universities, and so we said we need to get in there, and so I said, well, you know, and again, I was feeling a call to get a master's degree, but what better place to get a master's degree? And so
Right.
I enrolled
Right.
there to get a master's degree, and met the president of the university and became really good friends with him, and just
Continue to develop
the relationships, you know, those kind of things. And so as, you know, the favor of God had it,
Right.
when things started, because I knew that they would need facilities.
Right.
It was, and then as they started unwinding that they're going to need facilities, you know, we were already there. And so
that's awesome, man. This is a great story of the importance of relationships. I have a S3 framework, a R3 framework. My R3 framework deals with relationships, resume, and resources. And those resources are human resources, human capital, and also financial capital, right?
Yes.
So how critical all three of those are in order to be successful and to continue to grow. And you are hitting relationships on the head right now, because most people don't understand how important it is to work on those relationships, and that it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time,
especially for major dollars.
It does.
Yeah.
And I remember, in fact, one of the things, and I said this in our company planning retreat, when this happened. This was years ago. But we were pursuing schoolwork at the time. We weren't really doing any schoolwork, and we had, you know, kicked the door in enough to finally. They didn't want to do it, and so, you know, from the board level, you know, school district level, they said, okay, wait a minute. And this was in Polk County where I live, and you know, the framework was set that they had to start, you know, being intentional about diversity and those kind of things. And so we were doing a site visit, and the guy that was in charge of all the facilities, he was there, and he was talking to his counterparts, and he was talking about a company that had actually submitted on one of the prior RFPs. And he said, that was the first time that I even heard their name.
Wow.
Is when they turned the RFP in.
Wow.
He said, don't they know we do business with who we know and who we like? I was like, yo, you know, I was like, Eureka. That was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was like, we're not going to submit if we haven't already. And I think Turner is another one that I learned that from as well. They wouldn't submit on a project if they hadn't, they call it pre-selling.
Yes.
If they hadn't sold that, they're not going to, this is not going to be the first time when I turn in my, you know, response to this RFP. That's not going to be the first time that you know my name.
Right. That's excellent information. And I think everybody can benefit from that. Even if you are pursuing projects through hard bid, at some point in time, you should pursue projects that are going through some type of formal solicitation process, being able to negotiate that work. That's one of a heavy focus of mine in my teaching, to be able to develop those relationships so you can negotiate projects versus having to competitively bid all of them.
Yes.
You know, you can't get away without bidding some.
Yeah, you're going to have to bid some.
You're going to have to bid some, but for the most part, if you're able to leverage those relationships in the right way, you can definitely find yourself in a position to be able to grow, build enough backlog. So now I like to say this: once you build that backlog, it allows you to breathe a little bit. It allows you the time to build those relationships with your ideal clients. As you mentioned, 3 years. Sometimes I say it's no less than a year for sure.
Yeah, no less than a year.
Than a year.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about that ideal client, you know, Frank has given us some more education on that. Go ahead and plan for 3 years, and definitely between years 1 and 3, you should be able to formalize some type of relationship, or at least identify, is this going anywhere?
Right. That's right.
Or will
Yeah.
it ever go anywhere? And I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important. And then recognize, for myself, I can speak to um, Disney. I've been a client. Well, they have been my client for years.
Right.
And for years, I was only doing very, 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 very small projects.
Right.
And I just kept hanging in there. And finally, now, we're actually working in Magic Kingdom. So,
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So it just takes time.
It takes time. It takes time.
And we have to identify, am I willing to have patience with this client, or should I move on?
Yeah.
I know
That's
you've
right.
probably been in that situation before. Are there any key indicators you think that are out there that help you know whether you should move on
Yeah.
from that potential client, or whether you should stick in there and hang in there?
I think, particularly nowadays, social media is just like, it's really peeled back the curtain to let us know what our natural behavioral patterns are in a sense. And we live in a like economy.
What you mean by that?
Well, people with the likes, people
Okay.
judge their self-worth really on how many likes they get on a post. Because everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be appreciated. Likewise, when you're pursuing a client, you want that likability factor.
Yes.
And you have to be able to pay attention to, like, it's not a one size fits all. So literally on my first visit to a client, I'm looking at everything. I'm asking questions about family, relationships, those things, but I'm looking around the room. I'll give you one example. One of clients that we were pursuing at the time, and now as a client, I saw in the room that there was an actor that person had a picture of, or something to that degree. And I asked a question, and they were like, "Oh, this guy is blah blah blah." So immediately I stuck a pin in that and wrote it down. So when we got back, I knew that guy was going to be somewhere, and so of course I said, "We're going to invest in this relationship." So we got some tickets and sent those tickets, and that person was just like, "How did you know?"
Right.
And I was like,
You was paying attention.
yeah, I was paying attention. And I've done that so many times, either send a painting to someone. There's a scripture in the Bible that says your gift makes room for you and brings you in the company of great men. And there's a natural tendency when you give a person a gift that they feel like they're obligated to you in some way. They feel like they have to reciprocate. And whether they carry it around, they may not say it, but they kind of feel like, I owe this guy one, And so when something comes up, they're like, you know what, let's give him a shot.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you just have to be, instead of trying to be interesting, you have to be interested. And
son, you getting anything from this? I hope you paying attention. Like, you have to be interested in
you have
other
to
people.
Sincerely be interested, sincerely, authentically interested in people. And people pick that up. And when you're able to get those kind of relationships, people, they tend to reciprocate. So, I think it's the sweat equity of being intentional. And pursuing those. Now, is everyone a fit? Sometimes you meet people, and I don't know what it is. It's just like, y'all just don't.
Yeah,
you just
it's
don't.
Like oil and water. It just don't mix.
Yeah,
you just get a vibe.
It's just a vibe. It's like. So we started doing DISC. I don't know if you'll do DISC assessment. We started doing. In fact, every person we hire, we do a DISC on.
Okay.
And we started intentionally sending either myself or one of two other people in our company to go and talk to a client based on what we anticipate that person's personality is.
Gotcha.
because
That's smart.
yeah, and it actually we've had some pretty good successes on
That's
that.
smart. For those that don't know what DISC is, DISC is a personality assessment that helps you to understand whether someone is introverted, extroverted, whether they are strategic thinking, whether they are outgoing, whether they're detail oriented, task oriented, or maybe they're non-confrontational. So you're able to understand these personalities. Not only have I been utilizing DISC in my construction company, but I also provide that service for all my business clients.
Wow, excellent.
So anyone I coach or mentor, we provide that, and that's part of our online course portal as well.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yes, this
That's
is
awesome.
phenomenal,
Yeah.
and it helps you be able to at least understand why a person is the way they are.
Yes.
And
yes.
sometimes, like you said, oil and water doesn't mix. You get a vibe. I like to say I'm just spiritually aware
Yeah.
of what's going on. However, I think that's really, really important because not everyone's core values will align with yours. And it's
Yeah.
important to recognize that. Like, no, they want to cheat and steal
Oh, yeah.
and lie.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
not part of my
That's-
core
yeah,
values.
right.
Like,
That's
I want to
exactly
have
right.
integrity. I can tell they just trying to find any type of way to
That's
get the
right.
job.
Yeah.
That's not for me. So I think it's important to look at that when you, what they say, red flag,
Yeah.
when you see it, you know.
Mhm.
Let's segue to something else, man. I want to talk about. I know we've been talking about your journey and your growth. I'm not sure what year has been your largest year. Can you maybe talk about your largest revenue year you've had?
$37 million was our largest.
Nice.
Yes.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like, that's huge. You know, in the industry, there's not many people that look like you and I
Yeah.
that have had that type of success. And I no longer attribute success to the actual numbers. I mean, just the fact that
Of
you could
course.
be in business for
Yes.
32 years.
Yeah.
If you only did $100,000,
That's exactly.
and you stayed
That's
in
right.
business, man, you
That's
won
right.
already.
That's right. That's right.
Especially, you know, being a black male, we beat so many odds, so many statistics, and I
Sure.
know you probably attribute a lot of that to your faith.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Mhm.
and we did, you and I, and we can go ahead and talk about it. We did make history at the University of Florida. Now, this is 2019, where ACY was ranked 10th as the fastest growing Gator alumni. But you and I ranked first and second in 2018, and we made University of Florida history, being two black contractors.
Yes.
Right?
That was sweet.
Alumni of the
Alumni.
University of Florida. I would never forget that moment.
Neither will I.
You know,
That was
it was priceless. And I think because, and maybe you can speak to it. I know for me, knowing that at the University of Florida, number one, the percentage of blacks is very low.
Oh, yeah.
And it's even worse now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And just the fact that they will always be able to say Michael and
Yes,
Frank
yes,
were the
yes,
first ones
yes.
to rank in the highest position,
Yeah.
this award that will go on forever.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I think that's phenomenal. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I was you know, I think the anticipation when they start from the bottom up.
Yeah,
So
start at 100.
Yeah. And so when they got to you know, number 3,
Mhm.
we knew we were in there, but
Right.
we were like, oh boy,
Yeah.
here we go. And
Yeah.
and so when they called out number 2
Mhm.
and it was us, we
Yeah.
were just elated.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how much more I was elated when they called out number 1 and
Wow.
you came up. I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. It was
so
intense.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, it was so awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a wonderful moment.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. I mean, you've won so many awards, whether it's Tampa Bay Awards, Business Journal Awards, fastest growing this, fastest
Yeah,
growing
yeah.
that. What do you attribute to your success? What do you mostly attribute? If you can think of maybe 3 top things
Okay.
you could attribute your success to, what would that be?
Well, I think number one is my faith.
Okay.
I think it's the same for you as well. I am a Christ follower. Not always have been. And in 1992, we started our business.
Mm-hmm.
But by 1995, we were seeking bankruptcy protection. And it was probably one of the lowest periods in my life.
Yeah.
My wife and I we had resolved that we actually made a mistake. We should not have been married. And so we were looking to get a divorce.
Wow.
We had a child. The business we were seeking bankruptcy protection, and my world had caved in. And I remember saying, what happened? I started with great ambitions, wanting to do great.
Food is good.
And, everything just fell apart. And I was there, was weeping. My wife and I weren't speaking at the time. And I went and grabbed the Bible and started turning in it just to hear a word from God. And after I just turn and read a little bit, but really didn't know where to turn, I just threw the Bible on the ground and just put my hand in my lap. And I say something, but it was God for certain, because it proved out. But the Spirit of God said, pick the Bible up right where it is. And it was open, but it was laying face down. So I slipped my hand up underneath it and flipped it over. And it was on 2 Corinthians, the 9th chapter. And I started reading, and one scripture just jumped off the page and just slapped me. And it was 2 Corinthians 9, verse 8, I believe. And it says, now he that gives seed to the sower will both multiply your seed and increase the fruits of your righteousness. And immediately the tears dried up. And I still have the Bible today. And I took a pen and I wrote me. And I put a big arrow to that scripture and I circled it. And I said, don't play with me, God. But what that scripture said to me in that moment is, he said, I'm the one that gives seed to the sower. And he said, I've given you seed. And in fact, in the beginning, he told Adam, the first thing he gave Adam, he said, here, I'm giving you seed. And for you, it's going to be provision. Your provision comes from your seed. And I realized that I was eating all my seed. I was driving all my seed.
Now you about to
I was
preach.
wearing all my seed,
Now you about to preach. Yeah.
And he said, but I'm the one that gives seed to the sower. And he said, but he didn't say I'll add. He said, I'll multiply your seed sown. And the fact of the matter is, I wasn't sowing any seed on anything, like either physically, financially, spiritually, none of that. And he said, and I'll increase the fruits of your righteousness. And I took it at the time to mean that he would give us peace and he would restore my marriage. That's what I got, the fruit of righteousness. So anyway, my wife and I had $1,300 to our name, and we had it under the bed. So maybe folk don't understand why you would take money and put it under the bed. This was the only source of funds. We couldn't put it in the bank. If we put it in the bank, we were going to be in trouble. They were taking it. But we took that $1,300 and I told my wife that I think I heard from God and I believe God wants us to give it all away. And she said, okay.
Woo.
Yeah. And so we ended up, I was like, well, she said, where are you going to give it? And I said, I don't know. And we went to, at the time, T.D. Jakes was coming to Lakeland at the time it was Carpenter's Home Church.
Yeah.
And he came there and it was going to be the next week. We ended up going there. And for the first time in my life, I gave $1,000 cash and I just went down there and just put it down there.
Right.
But the other first part was that for the first time in my life, I was excited that I had given it.
Wow.
I was so happy. And we left, even though we had a strained relationship, we left happy because we had given. And we had $300 left. And her aunt came over to the house, and I heard the Lord say, give her that $300. So I gave it to her, and she fell out on the floor. She went down to her knees. She started crying. And she said, I just prayed right before I came over here, and the Lord told me to come over here. And she said, I've got a light bill 2 months behind. They're going to cut my lights off, and I didn't have the money to pay it. And it was $300. So needless to say, you know, and I don't say this to say you give and get that kind of thing, but it's what happened. If God changes your heart. And I got a call from the assistant city manager in Lakeland. Didn't even know that they even knew me. And she said, we're getting ready to redo the Lakeland Civic Center and wanted to know if you would be interested in being on the project. I'm like, man. And immediately I told my wife, I was like, I just got a call and they said they're getting ready to redo it. I'm like,
that's great.
We ended up getting the largest contract that we ever had. And we made, and I'll say this about the only thing I'll say about money, but I'll say that we made over $200,000 on that project. And I was able to pay the debt off that we owed. We only owed a little over $100,000. At the time, it was so massive.
Yeah. Back then,
I mean, 30
exactly,
years ago, exactly.
You know?
And we paid ourselves out of debt, and we joined a church, and we began to serve in the church. And I have found a principle, and the principle is one that people sing in the church all the time. They say, you know, you can't be God-given no matter how hard you try.
Right.
But I don't think people believe that. Because if you were told that the more you give, you would actually get more, that you can't outgive, then you would at least test it out. And just, you know, and we've lived our lives ever since then as givers. And that's giving our life to the kingdom and making his name great and making his kingdom great. And there are moments when I felt like that we were putting more time into his kingdom. And I'm like, I feel like I'm neglecting our business. But the more I turned around, our business was being slapped to smithereens, like it was being blown up. Yeah. And we were just being blessed. And God has done exponentially more than that. Yeah. And so, so that's the first thing in our faith. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. What's another one?
Vision. You know, the Bible says without vision, people perish. And, you know, that's part of what we do even now. Like our kids don't even know a period of time in their life that they don't do vision boards. Like we've been doing vision boards. Even now we teach vision board stuff. But we, you know, every year our company, we get together and we do a little retreat and we talk about who's got the money. We usually bring a consultant in and tell us who got the money. And then we craft a vision out for what we're going to target. And often it's 3 years out because that's what we do. But we just go back and revisit. We revisit and, you know, tweak it and things like that. Right. But having a vision, and it's not that the vision needs to be a connected vision that God is giving you. So that's part of the thing. Like I can have a vision to have a Rolls Royce and all this other stuff, but is that the vision that God is revealing to me? Is it connected to purpose? Is it connected to purpose? Right. And so that's the other thing. And then the last thing is I learned this later in life. And it's after reading the book, Good to Great. And Jim Collins was talking about hire first who, then what? I heard it, but I didn't hear it. But I come to find out that it is priceless. People matter and people make the difference. Yes. And I know, you know, like you have some people, you can't pay them enough money because their prices. In fact, in our culture at our company, we call them 5 talent, 2 talent, and 1 talent. Okay. In fact, we give an award every year called the 5 Talent Award. Okay. And it's based on Matthew, the 25th chapter. And it's talked about the 5 talent person. And the 5 talent person is, you don't have to tell them what to do. They already know what to do.
Right.
And I have this thing I'll say, don't make me start you, make me stop you.
Wow.
Self-motivated. 5 talent people are self-motivated.
That's powerful. They I may have to steal that one.
You got it, brother.
That is powerful.
But you don't have to tell. 2 talent people, they do just enough. They'll come up to the line, but they won't step over it.
Baby, I mean, you preach this on Sunday. This is so good.
They will do just enough. Yeah. And they're good and faithful because you need them. They're going to keep the company going. They're going to arrive to work every day at the same time. They're going to take their lunch break the same time every day. They're going to leave at 4 o'clock. They're gone. Right. They're not staying later. And if they do stay later, you better applaud them. You better say, oh, so-and-so, let's stay later. Oh, they did this extra. They didn't have to do. Right. You better recognize them. 2 talent. 1 talent is not going to do it. They're always going to be full of excuses. Right. They're going to come up with, see what happened was, and they're going to, and then it's always going to be about you. They're going to blame the company. Because remember the 1 talent guy said, see, you, I knew you was a hard man and you liked it so, and you liked it. And I'm like, what I got to do with this, you know? And so they're going to blame the company. They're going to talk about the company and they're going to pull the company down. And so we start cultivating more 5 talent. We hire 5 talent and we cultivate 5 talent within the company. Right. You can take a 1 talent and put them with a 2 talent, but you can't take a 1 talent and put them with a 5 talent. A 1 talent is going to drive a 5 talent bonkers. You could take a 2 talent and put it with a 5 talent, and the 5 talent will pull the 2 talent up to a 5 talent. In fact, the guy that just won our 5 talent award this year was always a 2 talent, but we put him with a 5 talent, and all of a sudden, you know, superintendents, it's a different caliber of superintendent that'll work with their hands. Right. Right. You know, that'll put some doorknobs on, put some door locks on. Right. Like, I
don't want to hire one that don't work with their hands.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Because you get some that'll come and they'll call and say, Michael, we need somebody to put these door locks on. And you say, how many door locks is it? Oh, 2. It's 3. And so you really want me to go find somebody to go put these door locks on. Yeah, that's 2 talent. That's 2 talent. 5 talent, you won't even get the phone call. Right. Because they're going to just put the door locks in. They're going to take care of it. Yeah. They're going to put the toilet accessories in. They'll go do that. They got time. They'll go do that kind of stuff. Right. You know? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me of another book that I read called Top Grading. I'm not sure if you heard of that, but there's a book and there's a concept. I forget the author's name. Called top grading. Top grading is essentially the same theory that you're doing with the 5 talent, 2 talent, 1 talent, which is biblical. So they say, how can you grade your employees A, B, C, D, and F? That no one should keep a D and an F graded
that's
employee.
Right. Yep.
And possibly you can coach up a C graded employee if they're capable and willing.
Wow.
If they're capable and willing. You can coach a C graded employee up. If they're not either capable or not willing, then you have to let them go.
Wow.
So it was very, very informative, and it identically matches.
I'm gonna have to grab that one.
It matches your story. So awesome, man. Listen, I applaud all your success. I am so happy you're here today, dropping so many gems, but I cannot close this segment out, this episode out, without saying, Mama, I'm here with the Frank Kendrick. Because my mom, she did this. She saw Black Enterprise back in 2010, I believe.
Yes.
And she saw these young Black men on the cover of Black Enterprise.
Yes.
And she said, they're from Florida. And when she saw it, Frank, my mom, I know she's going to comment on this when she sees it. She said, Michael, I prayed that would be you one day.
Wow.
That was that long ago, and now not only did we win awards together, but to have you here, man, it's a great honor. Yes. And I know my mom's smiling right now that I'm here interviewing you, man. Yeah. Just some last words, some last thoughts that you could share, and if you would just look into that camera right over there, some last thoughts, words that you could share that come to mind to help that person that's out there, whether they don't know how to get started in their business, or maybe they're trying to figure out how to hang in there. Maybe like yourself, going through a bankruptcy or financial distress or not making enough money, you attributed it to your faith and to vision. What else can you share with them to help them stay encouraged to keep going?
Yeah.
Just look right there at that camera and just talk to them for a second.
Yeah, I will. So I have to, if I'm going to say one last thing, I have to end kind of where I said earlier, our number one thing, and that is just cultivating your relationship to hear from God. I think, there is nothing that is more priceless than being able to set aside time to keep God first in your life. It's one of the things that you have to kind of, sharpen the saw so that you can be able to hear the direction that he's giving you for your life. He's the architect of your life, so he knows your life better than anyone else, and he's going to give you instructions. The other thing that I also want to say is self-discipline. We fight a lot of battles, Michael and I, in construction and, just life in general. But the hardest battle you're ever going to fight is the battle with yourself. I'm reminded of a scripture in Romans the 7th, and it's Paul was saying, he said, I don't know what's wrong with me. He said, the very thing that I said I'm going to do, I don't do. And the very thing that I promise I'll never, ever do is the thing I find myself doing. Who's going to deliver me from this body of death? And I think so many of us are walking around with a body of death. We have, in fact, Jesus said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. We have the will. We want to do things. We want to live right. We have all these goals and these ideas, but you can have the best laid out plans.
Yes.
You can have the biggest vision in the world. Yes. But if you can't manage yourself to be able to make it happen, then it's all for nothing. It's for naught. And so, I'm going to say this, 40% of what we do on a daily basis are habits. We get up, we brush our teeth, we go through we go to work, drive the same patterns. The way that you overcome bad habits is develop new habits. New habits replace the bad habits. And you have to live your life with intention. And whatever that enemy inside of you, sometimes you have to get outside of yourself and just pay attention and watch yourself, watch your own habits for a few days and see what your own personal idiosyncrasies are. And then figure out how to overcome those things and what you ought to be doing. Every athlete trains. I love Steph Curry. The guy shoots, when he releases, it's all bottoms. But do you know how many times he practices? Yeah. How many shots he takes? You can't perfect the thing that you don't practice. So you have to practice doing the opposite of the thing that's pulling you away from the vision that God has given you. You got to practice it. And practice eventually makes perfect. You develop habits, and then the habits will make you develop you.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Wow, this was so powerful, man. I'm so excited about that message you just gave our audience. And, some things I'm thinking about as you mentioned that self-discipline.
Yes.
And Steph Curry and practicing and how perfect practice makes perfect. Yes. And how just continue to be consistent at doing the things you need to do in order to grow, to create new neural pathways.
Come on now.
So you can
yes,
actually create those new habits.
Yes.
And I think about those things every now and then. There's something you don't see and you need someone to show you.
Yes.
That could be God. God could speak through people. And that's why we have mentors and coaches. And so I would say, listen, you all have benefited from a bunch of gems that Frank has laid out today. Over 30 years in the construction business, extremely successful, won award after award, built some of the most prominent facilities here in Central Florida, Southeastern University, Florida Polytech, and the list goes on through Polk County. Like, he's the GOAT. And I want you all to know that you have truly been blessed by this conversation dialogue today. Listen, if you're out there watching, I want you to go ahead, subscribe, continue to watch these podcasts that are being released weekly, because I'm telling you, if you take hold of the information, it will help you break all of those revenue barriers that you've been facing. Because listen, it's only up to you to make the decision to be great. So thank you for joining us again. We're so glad that you joined us, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. I'm so excited about your new journey. And if you are a construction contractor looking to win $1 million contracts, join me by going to www.winmilliondollarcontracts.com. See you soon.